Welcome to your journey of healing with the Healing Podcast, hosted by licensed clinician Monique Owe and co-host Dr. Amber Mohn.
Thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Monique Owe, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host here,
Dr. Amber Mohn.
Okay, so today's topic is, it is time to let them fly. What do you do when you can't tell them anything? This is regarding your adult children. Okay, so Dr. Mohn, just to start it off here, so when is it time to let them go?
My goodness. Well, it's kind of, in the title, it's when you can't tell them anything. See it a lot, especially in this day and age, that, just because you're 18 doesn't mean that you're responsible and ready to go out on your own. Typically, you need some more time under your belt. You don't truly, have an understanding of what adulthood consists of. And I typically see the young, people, the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, wanting to be independent or saying that they want to be independent and treated as such. But, in the same sentence, I also see that at their convenience. So they want to be adults when it's convenient for them. So the easy part of the adulthood, the going out, the drinking and, all that kind of stuff, that's what they want to do. But paying bills and, securing your future, whether it's college or, being responsible in those, aspects, they tend to not want to do that. So when you talk about when is it time to let them fly, well, it's different for every, young adulthood. But if these, people are in your home, these kids are in your home and rules don't work anymore. Disrespect comes, not understanding, what they have at their, fingertips. If it's not being appreciated, then it's time to say, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and make plans to, have you go do it on your own, Mr. or Mrs. Adult.
I think
I said that in the best way possible.
Right, Mr. or Mrs. Adult, it's time for you to do it on your own. Yeah. I think, well, what I will say is, so the American culture very much at 18, children usually are expected to be either maybe out the home or maybe in school or have some type of job. Sometimes in other cultures, adult children are allowed to live at home as long as they're working, as long as they're doing something with their life. They can stay home. They're not pushed out until they want to leave, maybe get married, really sometimes. Often, like, you don't leave until you get married. So they can stay home, but they are going to respect the parents' house and they're going to contribute to the household. But in this case, we are here in the U.S. So if we're going to go with American culture, still, yes, at 18, is it time for you to go? Well, yeah, it depends on the 18-year-old. Some 18-year-olds are very mature, right? Very responsible. You trust them. They went away to college. They're doing their thing. They're pretty much good. Even if the ones who they didn't go to college, but they decided to go into a trade or get a job and they're trying to develop a career, they're pretty good. They respect your house. They're good to go. You don't really have to worry about them. But like Dr. Mohn said, it's the other ones. It's the one where I'm an adult when I want to party, hang out, chill. But when it's like, I got to pay a bill, what? I got to pay a cell phone bill? Why? Why can't you do it? Well, Dr. Mohn, let me ask you, is that on the parents or is it on the child?
That's a good question, Monique, because that also depends too. If you're a parent that, wanted to give your child everything that you didn't have, like if I use myself as an example, I had a really good childhood. My parents did that. And so, looking at the stuff that my kids get, like I would have never got, any of that stuff. So, it spoils them even more because there's so much more. Like, when I was young, we didn't have cell phones. That wasn't, the rich did, the big block ones. But now, our middle school kids are walking around with cell phones. But that is just kind of how how things are now. So it's okay. So we're just giving them more and more and more. And so I think if you're doing that and they're not seeing the value, then no, it's not your fault. Now, if you're a parent that, you're not really there, you don't care what they do, things of that nature, then, you should, accept some responsibility, for, them just feeling like, shoot, you weren't here. I can do what I want to do. You weren't here. So
Well, I can see that definitely, Dr. Mohn. But I'm gonna say the disrespect when a child feels entitled. Like many times when you do give them everything they want, one, you're creating an avenue for a spoiled child and a spoiled adult that's really going to probably have some hard times in life because they've always had things quote unquote easy and handed to them. So if you constantly keep giving your children, everything they want, you're probably creating more of a negative habit than a good one. So, one, you do have to look at, are you spoiling your child? It is fine to give them things. It is fine if they've earned things. They do well in school. They're respectful in your household. Yeah, give them some rewards for that. Let them know because of their hard work, they got something. Because life is like that, right? Because life doesn't give you anything. If you work, you get. You don't, it's going to be a struggle for you. But I think, what happens here with the adult children. Now, let's talk about the ones who are over 18, Dr. Moon. They still living there and they don't really want to do anything. They still want to, that one, I want to get up when I want. No, I don't want to clean. You still are cleaning for them, or you still are cooking for them. Cooking might be okay, but you got to clean up after them. Like they go get stuff from the refrigerator or something and they leave crumbs on the counter and you're still constantly cleaning up after them. That might be a problem and then here goes your child. They're not respectful. They talk to you any type of way, or they don't say thank you. They don't even appreciate what you're doing, that you're paying their bills still. They don't have any plan when you ask them, what's your plan? Oh, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm figuring it out. They might even be getting into legal trouble, Dr. Mohn. What about maybe they started hanging around with the wrong crowd. Maybe now they have some type of misdemeanor issue. And now they need to get an attorney. And here you go. Now you're going to go get the attorney for them. Now you're going to go ahead and make sure the court try to make sure they get probation versus getting thrown in jail, right? So here you come to the rescue as a parent. And Dr. Mohn, if I can ask you, should a parent be coming to the rescue in that instance?
I would say the first time, yes.
Okay.
And not in all instances, but because but the first time, yes. But if you have not learned your lesson, then the second, third, and fourth time, no, not at all.
Makes sense. I think I'm gonna say the first time within reason.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna say. Yeah, okay. First time I can look out for you. I'm going to try to help you get through this matter because I don't want you to have a life of suffering. But you're going to do some work here. Let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to pay me back for that attorney.
Oh, yes.
Right? You're going to, if you don't have a job, you're going to go get a job. And you're going to pay me back every cent that I paid for that attorney. I'm not checking up on you. And if you do get probation, which is better than going to jail, nope, I'm not reminding you that you have a meeting with probation. That is on you. You are now an alleged adult, right? Because you're 18, right? So that's what I'll say within reason. But I think, Dr. Mohn, when we say it's the time to let them fly, we're talking about when they don't respect your home, would it be?
Oh, yes.
What would that look like?
Coming in, if you have a curfew, and it doesn't matter if your curfew is 9 o'clock, and they come in at 12 or 1 o'clock, it's no respect for your home. You can have other kids, younger kids that, you're raising. And when, that's the kind of example that they're setting. No, it's time to go. If you are not, like you said, if you're, eating my food, if you're using my electricity, my water, and you have no plans for, your future, we have a problem, because you can't keep telling, well, I'm an adult. Well, I can't tell.
Right. I can't tell. Right. You can't even do this thing.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is true. I think, so I think, as an 18-year-old, if you are home, okay, fair enough. I may give you some leeway to come and go as you please, but you are going to communicate. Maybe you do have to communicate. And if your child can't communicate, to tell you, this is where I'm going and I am staying out. Like, I'm not, don't wait up, put the alarm on. I'm staying out with my friend. The child should be able to communicate that, but you should not be waiting up and having your household disrespected because they are allegedly 18 or 20 or however old they are. So, yes, I think when they start doing those things and making noise, coming in, disrespecting your house, making noise, you're trying to sleep for work, they're coming in late, then they need to know those things. If they can't respect that, then that's probably when it's time to let that child go. When we come back, we're going to segue here into the situation. But when we come back, we'll talk about why, Dr. Mohn, why it's such a struggle. Because you would think, Dr. Mohn, if you're disrespecting my house, why is it so hard to let them go? So we're going to go into why that might be a struggle for parents to let them go, to cut the reins. So we'll do that when we come back. So right now we're going to segue into the situation. Dr. Mohn, what's our situation for today?
All right. Thank you, Monique. All right. Here is our situation. Dear Healing Podcast, I wonder if I'm in the right relationship. I've been with my girlfriend for the last couple of years and I really love her. However, I find myself lately wondering what my life would be like if we were not together. My girlfriend is significantly younger than me. She is successful in her career, and before we met, she already had a home of her own and was handling things as a successful businesswoman. It was one of those things that attracted me to her. The issue is, now that we have been dating for a couple of years, I have noticed that she always has some sort of drama or chaos around her. At first, I thought she had was just hanging around negative people. But now I see that she sort of creates the drama that leads to the negativity. For example, she sometimes suffers from anxiety, and it can get triggered by larger crowds or social gatherings. Just last month, she went to an event that a friend was having. Although I told her that it might not be good for her to go, she went anyway. True to form, she began to feel anxious, and she got into an argument with one of her friends because she felt they were being insensitive to her anxiety. Things similar to this happen quite often, and it is becoming too much to deal with. Healing Podcast, do you think I am overreacting, or should I maybe consider parting ways with her? Wow, that's a good question. Thank you for writing in. So I have some questions about, this anxiety. I'm just wanting to know, has she been properly diagnosed? Is she, getting medication or getting, some kind of therapy to help treat this anxiety? I'm sensing that she's not. And so that is more of a concern for me than the staying in the relationship. Because whether you stay in a relationship or not, like you said, you really care for her. And so that you want to make sure that she is able to continue being this successful woman that you fell in love with. And so we all know, and if we don't know, that anxiety is nothing to play with. It is very, very serious, and you want to catch it as early as possible. You want to get treated early as possible so that you can, maintain it. So that is my biggest concern. I would say, goodness, Monique, I would say, definitely let's tackle that first, because she is your friend. Let's try to see if that she's open to getting help. I'm not quite sure if you've talked to her, about it. I mean, you see that it is getting to the point where you don't even want to go to social events, with her, or really wanted her to go out, because you know that there's some drama going to happen. So I would say tackle that. Be, supportive, and be a friend to see, if, she is willing to get help. Because if she is, then I think the relationship will fall in, in line. I think that, you could probably just continue to go on with your relationship. Now, if this is something that is not up for discussion, and that's not something that she wants to do, to really just at least verbalize to her, look, this is where our relationship lies. If you do not, try and get help, or if you, if these types of behaviors continue, then we're not going to be able to move forward in our relationship. So that would be my tips. What do you think?
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohn, for sharing those tips. And also thank you to the listener for writing into the Healing Podcast. Well, to your question, should you leave or stay? Well, I think you have to ask yourself, does she create more chaos for you, or does she harbor peace? Does she create a peaceful environment for you? If you find that if you find yourself that it's more chaotic because of her behaviors, because I think that issue there it wasn't just the anxiety. So it sounds like she goes towards things that will cause her to get into arguments because she creates drama. How often does it happen? I would ask, how often does it happen? You have to look at that. Does this happen once a year, once every few months? That's probably not a big thing. She just has to work on her behavior. You might want to encourage her to go to therapy to work on her behaviors. But if it happens often, at least once a month, she's going to get into something where she doesn't take into account things that are better for herself. You can't do the work for her. She has to be willing to help herself. I would say if she creates more chaos for you, then you have to ask yourself, what do you value more? Do you value your peace, or are you okay with the chaos? So I would say, as far as should you leave or go, you got to ask yourself, what are you looking for, and is she promoting that, right? If it is just anxiety, as Dr. Mohn said, the anxiety is the major issue, it's the anxiety that causes her to be dramatic, then ask her to try to go and seek help. And if she refuses to go get help, then I think you have your decision, because she's got to take care of herself, want to take care of herself first. So for you, ask yourself, what are you looking for? Is she giving you that? And if she's not giving you that, then I think you have your answer. So I thank you. I hope that helped you. And I thank you for writing into the Healing Podcast. Dr. Mohn, anything else on this situation before we go on?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. Well, before we go on and continue with our topic about when should you let go, just want to thank our sponsor, and that is HealingExpressionsLLC.com. If you're looking for therapeutic services in the Atlanta area or Georgia, then please go to healingexpressionsllc.com and see if you can book a therapeutic session today. So back to our topic, Dr. Mohn, about when is it time to let them fly? Well, I think in those cases, so we're talking about adult children in the home. And I think we've agreed if they're disrespecting the boundary in our home, we should let them go. It's time for them to move out. Well, Dr. Mohn, that seems like a simple fix. So why don't parents just let them go? What's the struggle there?
Well, typically because they know that they're not ready and they have no clue what's out there waiting for them. And as parents, we do know, and most likely they'll be back. And so, you don't want to waste time. You just kind of want them to listen to you and, listen, I know what I'm talking about, but they've never believed that. So it's kind of like we're going to have to really go through this whole cycle, and, that's difficult for parents. Some parents don't even want to go through it.
Yeah, I think it's painful. I mean, it's hard. You don't want to see your babies suffer, right? No one, and they're always going to be your babies, right? Even when they're like 30, 40, They're still going to be your babies. No one wants to see their children suffer. So you do want to still be a protector, but you do have to trust, like, look, you gave them some good values, and that struggle that you're trying to rescue them from, you're not helping them. You're actually hurting them. So I know it's that you want the struggle is, they're not ready. They're not responsible. Well, they might have to bump their head a little bit. They might have to fall down a little bit for them to get it. So you may have to just let go of that rope and let them figure it out. So in reference to the healing tips on how can you figure it out, what can you do when you have that type of situation? Well, one thing I'm going to say is know your child. If you have a responsible child and they're going to school or going to work and they're respecting your house, well, then they should be able to stay. I don't think you got to let them fly. They should be able to fly maybe when they want. You may encourage them to get out on their own, but if they're really not violating your space and they're respecting your house, and they clean up and they help out, I don't think you have to let them go. They may be a joy to have around. But if they are disrespecting your space, they're not listening to you, you try to give them chance after chance, they're feeling they're spoiled, they're entitled, well, you can consider, can you help them get an apartment or a room to rent? Like maybe you'll put down a deposit and pay the first month's rent or the first couple months' rent if you can afford it. If not, if you know maybe a friend that has a good job that they're willing to give your child, maybe you'll talk to your friend to help them get that job, but tell your child they have, 60 days to move out. And unfortunately, Dr. Mohn, they might have to change the locks because, your child might say, I'm going to still be here anyway. Well, nope, I'm going to show you better than I can tell you sometimes. And when you come home next time, because you've been so disrespectful to my house, you're going to find that those locks are changed. What are they going to do? They're going to have to figure it out. But I think if you can, one thing I would say for the disrespectful child, if you can somehow help them get on their own, meaning like go rent the room, if you can afford to pay for a couple months of the apartment, do that. Before we go into more healing tips, it was a situation. I remember I'd heard singer Brian McKnight, and this is a couple years ago. I don't remember when I seen it. It was on social media. I don't know if you saw Dr. Mohn. And he was talking about the disrespect that his adult child did to him and his new wife. Now, he had set it up where he had told his adult child, he said he was going to pay, I think, their expenses for 2 years. I think it was the two brothers. The brother, he said, look, I'm going to pay for the apartment. I'm going to pay for everything for 2 years. You got 2 years to figure out what you want to do with your life. Do you want to go into music? Do you want to produce? You want to go to school? And I thought that was a good setup, Dr. Mohn, right? Well, of course, the 2 years came by and they didn't do anything. So, of course, Brian stopped paying for stuff. He said, you got to go. So on social media, they made this whole thing about how their father doesn't take care of them, how they criticized him. They came into his house. I think they broke the frame of the wife's picture. They kind of, I think, damaged the house just a little bit. And, but they made it seem like it's that my father's not there for me. And then Brian McKnight had to explain, I gave them 2 years to be paying all the bills, and they didn't figure it out. So yeah, I did cut them off. He explained even how one son was supposed to produce Brian's next album or a couple songs, and he didn't even come through on that. He said, so I'm not going to go ahead and let them disrespect my new wife, because they are now adults. So Dr. Mohn, with that, who was wrong there? The children wrong, or was Brian McKnight wrong?
Based on what I just heard, the children, because they're not children anymore, and they were provided opportunities to, like you said, produce, that's money, produce his 2 songs. I'll try to do that, if I have an opportunity. So he was giving them opportunity. He gave them 2 years. My fear in situations like that is that, if something was to happen to me, what would happen to my kids? How have I set them up to be successful? And so as parents, that's how we look at things. They don't look at it like that. But, I could go bankrupt at any time. Anything could happen, and then where will you be?
That is true. That is true. So going back to how can you prepare to let a child like that go? Well, one, we already told you. One thing to recognize, if they're being disrespectful, it is time to let them go. That might be hard. So you as a parent, one healing tip, you might have to go to therapy so you can get encouragement, to get strength to be able to let them go and be okay with it, right?
Right.
And not feel bad about it. I mean, one thing you can do if you really feel like I can't leave them on the street. Well, maybe another family member is willing to step in that's a little bit more strict, like an uncle or a favorite aunt. But like over there, you're not going to act up. You may have to do an arrangement where they live over there, and over there they're going to have another set of rules. But if they say no, they're not doing that, well, guess what? Then I guess they're going to have to figure it out. So one thing is, you, the parent, you might have to go to therapy to get the strength to cut them off. If you can afford it, try to set them up a little bit, maybe a couple months rent, or for a room at least a room, maybe not an apartment. 3, maybe there's a family member that they can move into with it instead. But I think staying with you, that's not an option. So you do have to let them go in that instance. Dr. Mohn, what is something else? How can that parent prepare to let them go when they've done everything they could?
Because my thing is that you don't have to be, letting them go doesn't mean that you're upset, and doesn't mean that, you're disowning them. Letting them go is just, saying, hey, you're an adult, you have these strong opinions. What's going on in my home doesn't matter. So, they can opt in. And so I can't speak for everybody, but there's always an opportunity to come back. But if you do, because you need help or you fall on hard times, you're going to have to come back humble. You're going to have to come back, because I'm always here as parents. We're always here, like you said, to mentor them, to be there for him. That's how it should be, because I'm always going to know more about life. Typically, I should know more about life because I'm older than you. I've been in this world longer than you. So a lot of this stuff that I'm running into, or you're running into, I've already been there and know the answers and ways to get around or to get through it. So, maybe when if they have to go, have it in your mind and your heart that, if they fall on hard times, like, I'm always here. You can always call me. I would like for us to still have that, relationship, but in a different way. More friends than, me being your mother and parenting you. So, I guess that's how I feel.
How you would feel with how to let them go. So I think one thing you would have to do too is, so one, this should not be sprung on them. So it shouldn't be like they came home and today you got to get out tonight. Yeah. I think you do have to give them the warning. Like, you've been disrespectful to my household. You have 3 months to figure it out, or 6. Right? Don't give them a year. I think a year is just going to create more. You might have to put your foot down. So remember, it's first, recognize it being disrespectful to your household. Recognize it's spoiling them. That's not good for them. You're not helping them. They're not doing anything. They're not taking care of your house. They're not wanting to work. They're not wanting to go to school. So 2, you may need to go to therapy, of course, to get the strength to let them go. If 3, find a family member that might be able to help instead of you, where they can move in with them. If you have enough to pay the rent for a couple months, or for at least a room, maybe an extended stay. Maybe you'll pay for a month of an extended stay and they have to figure it out, right? Talk to them, let them know, but then be ready to cut the rope. So Dr. Mohn, meaning on that day when it's the 3rd month or the 6th month and they have not done anything, does that parent just change the lock?
I don't even think, they should have to change the lock. It's just, moving day. It's just moving day. I would hate to think that you would have to, change the lock. But if you do, yes.
Okay, so the parent has to have the strength enough.
Yes.
So maybe should they have maybe a family member help them, have somebody to make sure they do it? Like, if they're married still, the parents are married still, then the spouse has to be, look, this is what we're going to do. We told you, so we are going to give you a ride to this place. Figure it out how you're going to get a room. And then they might start crying, though, Dr. Mohn. They might start crying. They can't do it.
This is a celebration. Like, you're an adult. This is what you want. I mean, right? Are we not working towards the same goals?
Yeah, but I can't do it.
Yeah,
you know what this is going to happen? They're not. I can't do it, Mom, Dad. I can't. I realize I played around too much. I can't do it. I don't have nowhere to go. I'm going to be homeless.
Okay, so what is your plan? Because if you're not giving me a plan, if you're not coming to me and saying, I realize that I made a mistake. I know, this stuff was going on, and you don't have a plan, give me a plan.
I'm going to get a job. This is remember that
this is both agreed on.
This is 3 months. This is already the 3rd month or whatever time frame you gave them to figure it out. Yes. So this is the last, this is the day. It's time to get out. And they start begging you, crying. They don't have nowhere to go. They're going to be on the street. Do you give them more time?
with a plan and an agreement. Because my thing is this: we're still parenting them whether they like it or not. 18 makes you grown legally, but mature wise, you're not. And so you need to come to me with a plan. If you want to stay here, things are going to be different. And if you can't come to me with a plan, if you can't, we can't sign an agreement, and you have a little preliminary, time to where I need to be seeing progress. No. And so I 30 days after, yes, I say.
So you're going to give 30 more days. 30 more days.
I give them 30 more days, but.
Okay.
But that's like I need to see action. I need to see progress. And if I don't, then there is no talking. And no matter how much crying you do, you got to go.
Okay. Dr. Mohn said if they start sobbing that day and it's the deadline to go ahead and give them 30 more days, but with an active plan and progress. What I'm going to say is no. I'm going to say that day if they start crying and sobbing, they have nowhere to go, then you bring them to a shelter. This is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard. Because here's the thing, because what's the guarantee in another 30 days? Well, I still didn't find a job, though. I still didn't get to do this, though. So my thing, that's
shelter going to be open.
So here's the thing. You had already given them. Remember, I did say you do have to have a communication. You should not spring this on them. So they should know this was coming. They got a warning 3 or 6 months ago. I think 6 months is a better thing. 6 months ago, they got a warning. They got to get a job or go to school or do something, be more respectful of my household. And here came the deadline. And you warned them that 6-month mark is approaching. And they didn't do it. Now they're sobbing because you now packed up. Let's go. And they don't want to go. Well, guess what? No problem. I'm not going to have you on the street, but I'm going to bring you down to that shelter. So as parents, what you do have to do is maybe prepare a backup plan yourself. If the family can't take them, you can't afford to put them in an extended stay for a couple months. Look up some local shelters that will take a young man or woman that will assist them. So that way they have that backup. Well, this is where you're going to go. If you can remember, I will say with the Cosby Show, there was an episode where I think it was the episode when Theo threw that party and then they packed him. No, come on, you're going. Let's go. And they brought him to that house where it was a rooming house. They said, no, your punishment for throwing this party, not respecting our house. So that's what I'm saying. You might have to have the backup of a shelter or something. Like, no, I know you're sobbing. I still love you. I'm not your enemy. I'm going to help you, but you're getting out of this house. So you're going to the shelter. Since you don't have a friend or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, anyone you can stay with, another family member, yes, I have a shelter right here. I'm going to drop you off. And that should teach them the lesson. So while Dr. Mohn said give them another 30, I'm going to say no. You already gave them 6 months. And you probably gave them longer. Because remember, this was just the final straw because they were disrespectful. So lastly is don't let a child or anyone disrespect your household. That is not appropriate. You did your job. You raised them. You gave them the tools. They chose not to receive those tools. This lesson should be helpful to them versus hurting them. They may not like it, but they'll appreciate it later. Dr. Mohn, anything else regarding how to get the strength to cut them off?
No.
Okay. So thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. We appreciate your support. And before you go, let me leave you with this. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are also allowed to wave bye-bye to anyone who doesn't respect them without an apology. So I thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, hey everybody, Monique Owe here, and I just had to come back really quick. I know the episode has been closed, but I wanted to just bring some clarity to something I said because I do understand sometimes some people may take some things literal, and I don't want that to happen. So I made mention in this episode, I made mention to the Cosby Show. Just want to clarify, I'm referencing the Cosby Show, not the actual actor, Bill Cosby, the actual person. I'm talking about the show where there was the Huxtables. And on that episode, that was where Theo had threw that party. And of course, the house got a little trashed. And no, they did not actually send Theo away, but they did give Theo a consequence. If you remember on that episode, Cliff he tried to take him to the army, but they wouldn't take him and things like that. And he kept saying, I'm sending him away. But no, every morning Theo was going to be responsible for going to, I think, a shelter at 5 a.m. or a food kitchen to help, I think, an underprivileged community or something like that. This is years ago now, guys. This is the 80s, of course. So, or that episode might have been early, maybe 90s, maybe 91. I don't recall. But anyway, that was just a reference, just saying that in that case, the adult child had a consequence for not respecting his parents' home. So this episode again is just about the adult child respecting the boundaries of your home. Whether you decide to make a consequence to have them leave your home or have a set consequence of having them to maybe only live there a certain amount of time, whatever you want, but you do have to set a boundaries what this episode is about because they are adults. And if you don't set a boundary, you're only creating a recipe for disaster because you're not going to be here forever. And they need to be equipped to be able to go on even if you are not here. So that is what that my clip was about and my reference earlier in the episode was about. I hope that you have more understanding and we thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. Please continue to tune in. Bye bye.